Laugh with me, buddy. Just with me, buddy. Don't let her get the best of me, buddy. Don't let me start feeling lonely, buddy. I'm a huge Willie Nelson fan, and that song makes me cry, even before Parks and Rec demolished my heart. Anyways, this isn't a music thing. I know you're like, oh, music, what? I hate when she does that. Anyway, so this is gonna be a little bit of, I'm not even in focus. I'll just make sure I'm in focus. Oh, I might, that's okay. This is gonna be a bit of an emosh video, if you will. I want to talk about books that have had a huge emotional impact on me, or books that have profoundly affected me, or books that I have very specific emotional memories attached to them. I like the idea of this video. I think it's kind of interesting, and I occasionally like to get real. Occasionally. And in lieu of doing like a book review, because I don't really have a lot to talk about in terms of books, there's a book review coming your way for a book called Red Queen that I'm now liking, so that should be fun. But anyway, yeah, let's talk about these books and their effect on me. So the first one I want to talk about, I know you're gonna be like, roll your eyes, Perks Being Wallflower by Steven Chbosky. I read this book when I was 15, and I have a very specific memory of being in yearbook class and crying, just crying my eyes out, and my amazing, lovely yearbook teacher asked me if I was okay, and I was like, not okay, just like this book, and I ended up going to the bathroom. But more specifically and more profoundly, I finished reading this book one beautiful April day at my house, and we have this big backyard, and we used to, for a long time, ever since we moved here when I was 7, had this big tree. It was an oak tree, and right next to our house, and there was a swing that my dad put up, and it was my favorite place in the entire universe. That tree and that swing was my childhood, and it meant the world to me. And the tree died, sadly, and so we had to cut it down, and I remember sitting on that tree stump one like beautiful dusk, it was like 5 o'clock dusk, golden light time, finishing this book, and crying at the book, thinking about my future. I was a sophomore in high school, and thinking about how like I was going to graduate in a couple of years, and thinking about how my childhood was ending, and it was a very profound moment for me. And the idea of feeling infinite, which is what I think Steven Chbosky talks about so beautifully. I mean, so many things he talks about beautifully in this book, but the idea of feeling infinite really was something that defined what I thought being a teenager was. That changed a lot, but for the next few years, that was a big part of how I interpreted my life, and why I did things. And of course, I didn't do anything dangerous. I didn't stand in a pickup truck going through a tunnel, but it was just the feeling, and it was something that I feel like has been important. It allowed me to recognize moments that were really profound. But yeah, this book, man, does it for me. Another book I read, that whole first year of me being a serious reader was very profound. I also read that year a book that was just, I can't even describe to you the importance of The Magicians by Lev Grossman for me. I read this, actually I think I was a little bit younger. I think I was a sophomore in high school. I read this, I was a sophomore, same age. And I picked it up from my school library. It had just come out, and I sat down and I read it. And holy God, this book means the world to me. I never read anything like it. I'd never read anything that felt so slow-paced and so methodical and so human, and the characters were unlikable, and they were rude, and they were mean, but they felt really real, and there was hope, but there was also deep, deep devastation and sadness, and then it was wrapped up in this magical world. And I remember sitting at lunch with my girlfriends, and sitting 3 seats away from them because I wanted to read, eating my PB&J, and one of them asked me, why didn't I sit with them? And I was like, oh, this book. And she was like, oh, what is this book like? What is it about? And I was like, I mean, and I explained to her what it was about. And she's like, do you like it? And I said, I've never liked anything more. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, have you ever read a book or seen a movie or listened to a song and afterwards you're in such a fog that you can't escape from that world? You feel so emotionally connected. And she said no. And I went, okay. But that's what this book did for me. Sort of skipping ahead a little bit, I read a lot of just like okay books for a few years, but there was a book that I read right after I had a thing happen to me, and it was a book called The Bermudas Triangle by Maureen Johnson. I read it my senior year of high school, and The Bermudas Triangle I think is a very underrated book, but it's about three best friends, and one of them starts dating a guy who she meets at a summer program, and he lives in California and she lives in New York, and then the other two characters are dating each other. And it's a beautiful book. It deals with LGBTQ issues really well, and it's very honest, and it picks friendship in a great way. But specifically, there was a line about the girl's dating experience, the girl whose boyfriend lived in California's dating experience, which just like completely blew me away. I don't remember the line anymore, but it was exactly what had happened to me. And in all my teenage angst, I was like, Maureen Johnson gets me. But yeah, I don't remember what the quote is, but it was like hugely important to me at the time. Okay, and then jumping forward a little bit, my freshman year of college, I read a book called Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and that book, I love that book, and I love that book because at the time, I was a freshman in college, first semester, and Kath, I don't write fan fiction, I'm not in that world at all, but Kath's nervousness was so much like mine, and it was just like, that's just a little note, like, that wasn't even like, that's not even like a big thing, but that was like, yes, this is happening to me right now, oh my god. But anyway, and then I read a book called Just One Day, by Gail Forman, and I'm talking about a lot of YA books because I tend to, when I connect with books, connect with characters who are young, so they tend to be YA characters, and I connect with books that are written for adults as well, but just like in my short little time, that's what I've connected with the most. But Just One Day, Gail Forman, I've talked about in my little Sunday tag, that book was hugely important for me in helping me realize how unhappy I was at my old university, and reading that and just being like, oh my god, this is how I feel. This is exactly, this character is what she's going through, is how I feel. And sitting in my bed at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, bawling my eyes out in my room and asking me what was wrong. And I was like, this book is so, I couldn't even put it to words. And then I realized later, this book is my life. Not the part when she goes to Paris, but the stuff afterwards when she's like chilling in her college dorm room and is really unhappy. And then shortly after, Nick Hornby's Juliet Naked. I never finished this book, but this book is really important to me because I remember very vividly last year I was reading this book in a class, and right after reading half this book, or how much ever I read, I had a 48-hour panic attack and didn't go back to that school and realized how unhappy I was. And this book in some way is like a symbol for that, because it's so closely connected to the time period that I was dealing with. But yeah, like this book, man, Nick Hornby's Juliet Naked was just like right afterwards. I will probably never finish it, even if it was a good book from what I remember, but I probably will never finish it because of that reason. I love when people are talking during my serious video. So rude. And then the last couple of books are one's gonna be surprising and one's not gonna be so surprising. The surprising one is going to be Unravel Me by Tara Mafi. I read this book March of last year on a family road trip when I was horribly depressed, and I found so much hope in Juliet's story. I'm not talking about her boy drama or anything like that, which is super fun to read. I'm talking about the fact that she really learns to love herself. She becomes stronger through the series. She becomes a person who's independent of these men. She becomes someone who feels powerful and feels like she can keep going, and that was really important to me. And Unravel Me was the best book in the series for me because of that reason. It's when she really starts to get her footing. I mean, it happens later in Ignite Me as well, but yeah, weirdly this book is important to me, and I think Tara Mafi doesn't get a lot of credit for writing that character. And even though she can be very annoying and can be very whiny, she's a very real character, which I really appreciated. And then finally, by far the best book I read last year, The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. This book demolished me. My emotions. I cried several times. Junior's story is such a beautiful one, and it's such a heart-wrenching one, and it's such an important book, and I will read it again and again. I just loved it so much. So much. And this current year, I think the book that had the most powerful effect on me so far was The Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling. I don't know why it did. I honestly am not far enough away from it to tell you why it did. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me books that had a profound effect on you and memories you have of those books if you feel like it. You don't have to share. But have a wonderful day. I know it's a little more serious, but you know, sometimes I want to get a little serious. Anyway,